Hello, everybody. Welcome live from Cromwell, Connecticut. I've been at the Travelers the last 2 days. This is our Wednesday night stream. We debuted this 2 weeks ago at the Canadian Open. You guys seem to dig it. We went through press conferences, talked about all the storylines that develop between Monday when we do Dan on Golf and Wednesday when we do this sort of midweek update. You guys seem to enjoy it. So we're back from Cromwell, Connecticut. We're going to get into kind of three topics. I've got three different things I want to talk about today, whether this stream lasts 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 40 minutes. We will see. But the three things I want to talk about. So there's a new CEO, new PGA Tour CEO, which is really, really significant. This is essentially a new commissioner. They created this new role, the CEO, when they went to a for-profit model, PGA Tour Enterprises. It was part of the Strategic Sports Group investment. And Jay Monahan's been commissioner for quite a long time now, 2017, I believe. And Brian Rolapp is coming to replace him, but not as commissioner, as CEO. Monahan will stay on until the end of 2026, but then it will be Brian Rolapp's show, so we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the Travelers Championship. I've been out at TPC River Highlands, so we're going to get into what I saw, what some of the guys are looking for this week, and we're going to talk about JJ Spaun and kind of his last couple of days and where he sits in the Ryder Cup picture. So we'll start with the new CEO, Brian Rolapp, and I had a few people say to me, are you sure you pronounce it Rolapp? I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure. I mean, this seems pretty straightforward. Rolapp. Those seem like pretty, those letters don't really confuse me very much. But, the first thing I want to highlight about Brian Rolapp is that he's really not a golf guy. Like, he says he plays golf, and he wrote that open letter to PGA Tour fans where he said, I love the game, doesn't have a handicap. We're going to get to that. He went to BYU and Harvard Business School, so obviously a very, very smart guy. But if we look at, where he started, began as an analyst in world markets in their media and entertainment group, joined NBC Universal as the director of business development in New York City. So he's still in sort of TV production, in the business side of TV, and then USA Networks. And then 3 years with NBC Universal, he goes to NFL Network in 2003 as this director of finance and strategy at NFL Network. So that's a big job, but it's not anywhere near as big of a job as he left with. So this is a guy who entered, not super high on the totem pole and worked his way up. In 2005, he was promoted to vice president of media strategy and digital media. Keeps moving up to the point where now, he was widely considered to be a potential successor to Roger Goodell as the commissioner of the NFL, which is maybe the biggest job in sports, $40-something million a year. So, and if we look at Jay Monahan's bio, it's very different. Like, he came up he was at the PGA Tour since 2008, so 9 years before he became commissioner as the executive director of the Players Championship. Then he worked in senior vice president of business development in 2010. So they really promoted someone internal, whereas for this one, they've gone external. And to get as far as replacing Jay Monahan, the best that you could do is to hire the number 2 from the NFL. Like, that is, as far as sports executives go, this is what Tiger Woods had to say. Brian's appointment is a win for players and fans, PGA Tour director Tiger Woods said in a statement. He has a clear respect for the game and our players and brings a fresh perspective from his expertise in the NFL. I'm excited about what's ahead and confident that with Brian's leadership, we'll continue to grow the tour in ways that will benefit everyone who loves the sport. So that was a big word at the introductory press conference, was growth. And I didn't think that he was going to come in and be Jay Monahan's number 2, so I'm not at all surprised to see that Jay Monahan's going to be basically showing him the ropes and then stepping down. You don't leave being the number 2 at the NFL to go be the number 2 at the PGA Tour on like a way smaller sort of platform. But everyone seems very impressed, and I think him coming from outside of the golf world, which is really a small bubble, I think it's really significant for reasons we're going to talk about. But here's Keegan Bradley talking about the player reaction, or give at least his reaction to Brian Rolapp.
I spoke with him yesterday. His incredible, seems like a really smart guy. I just think the PGA Tour is in such a great spot. A handful of years ago when all this started, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was nervous. I didn't know. How.
Oh my God, I was on mute there. Everyone's going to kill me. What I said, I won't put myself on mute. Even if it echoes, I won't put myself on mute. I'm so sorry for that again. Alex Bush is going to be punching air somewhere. But what I said was, Keegan's very genuine when he speaks. And I think he was nervous when this whole first thing started because he cares about the PGA Tour, and I think he's honest when he says that he believes the PGA Tour is operating from a position of strength. And I think that's the overall sort of feeling with the tour is like this live stuff. We've sort of took the worst of it. We've took the punches, and now we're in a much better spot going forward. So let's get back to Keegan.
This was all going to end up, but now, years later, I'm really confident in where the PGA Tour is and where it's going. I'm proud to play on this tour, and I've never played. It's never been better than it has been right now, and that was a worry. And now I'm even more excited.
So I think if they would have made this appointment, 5 years ago, or not 5 years ago, but 3-4 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever the live stuff was, it would be a much spicier conversation. About who the commissioner is going to be and what his job is going to be. But I do think that people have sort of moved past it. And so I think that it's, there's a reaction to him being made CEO, but it's not as dire as when it felt like, the tour was collapsing. So Rolapp did speak to media, and let's hear it.
I think everyone is talking about that. My view is
So this is a question about live, and this is sort of the elephant of the room for the PGA Tour commissioner is like there's still this ongoing negotiation. I know it's the 2 years came and went, the 2-year anniversary of the framework agreement came and went with no agreement. Nothing really has happened since then, but there still is this big divide in professional golf. And we did talk about how the PGA Tour is in a position of strength, but there's new blood in the conversation now. Right? Liv replaced Greg Norman with Scott O'Neill, who's an industry veteran. Comes from outside golf, but an industry veteran, sort of a similar profile to Brian Rolapp, an industry veteran, but from outside of golf. So I think having new voices in this conversation is so important. New voices in the live conversation. It seems they're at a stalemate. They seem to be at a stalemate with Jay Monahan and Yasser. It's been 2 years. Nothing's really happened. And, I think Jay Monahan... Jay Bake says NFL Network actually made some good stuff in the early 2000s, and yeah, he was there for that. So good stuff. But when you try and you try and you try, sometimes you're at a stalemate, and the only thing that's going to change is new people. And I think Jay Monahan, his role and his stature in the game, for better or for worse, fair or not, took such a hit. And I think there was just so much baggage as far as him, and then he's going on TV and talking about the 9/11 victims, and then he's making the deal with Yasser Al-Rumayyan. It never really felt like Jay Monahan was going to lead this organization in the post-live golf era. And we're not in the post-live golf era, and maybe I'm wrong and maybe they're right that they're going to keep going forever. But if there is a deal, which both sides claim to still want, it didn't feel like Jay was going to be the right guy to move that forward just because of all of the baggage. So, I think with Scott O'Neill and Brian Rolapp in the mix now, I really do think that, it's sort of a new beginning for this negotiation. So Rolapp was asked about the live deal, and here's what he had to say. I'm going to spoil it for you, not much, but we'll analyze this.
I think everyone is talking about that. My view is I come in with a pretty clean sheet of paper. I also come in knowing that
that's what we talked about, isn't it? Like the coming in with a clean sheet of paper. Like I don't have the baggage. I don't have the I don't have the history of going on CNBC with my tail between my legs. Like I wasn't involved in this when they first came around. I'm only involved in it now. So that's exactly what we talked about.
There's a lot to learn. Everything that works in the football world may not work in the golf world. When it comes to that situation particularly, I think the fans have been pretty clear. I think the fans want to see the best golfers competing against each other. I think everybody's a golf fan. I agree with that. When it comes to the situation with Liv, I think that's a complex situation. That's probably something I should learn more about before I speak. But I will say is my focus is on growing the tour, making it better, and really moving on for the position of strength that it has.
Position of strength. That's what we hear. That's the line. Position of strength. He wasn't going to give the secrets and say, "Oh, I've actually talked to Yasser yesterday, and we already have a deal." I think yesterday was only made official, and then he lives in Connecticut. Probably will have to move. Not probably. We'll definitely have to move to Ponte Vedra Beach. Chase S says new CEO looks like he's in the mafia. He does kind of have a tough look. Definitely not a guy that I would want to mess with. But yeah, no, I think it's a, as far as resume goes, like Keegan Bradley said, you really can't do better in hiring a sports executive than the number two from the NFL. Speaking of the NFL, you know, what he did before was he was in charge of their media rights deal, and the NFL has an innovative media rights deal. They've got deals with YouTube, they've got something with Netflix, they've got direct to consumer offerings, and the PGA Tour's media rights deal is up in, I believe, 2029, either 2029, 2030 in that. And they're in a very traditional, CBS has half the events, NBC has half the events, NBC, it's been the same way for a really long time. So, and that rights deal, that media rights deal is so, it's impossible to overstate how important that rights deal is for the future of the tour. That's where the money is from, largely is the live rights, in addition to so many other things. But that's a very, very, very important part of this piece. So he comes in having negotiated the best, basically, television streaming deals in all of sports. So I think they got their guy. I definitely think this was who they all settled on. The statement said unanimously recommended, which is sort of interesting. But so what can Brian Rolapp apply to the PGA Tour from the NFL? He was asked that question. Here's what he said.
I think everyone is talking about that. My view is I come in with a pretty clean sheet of paper. I also come in knowing that there's a lot to learn. Everything that works in the football world may not work in the golf world.
I think everyone's first reaction was like, red zone for golf, red zone for golf. But like he's saying, they're different sports.
When it comes to that situation particularly, I think the fans have been pretty clear. I think the fans want to see the best golfers competing against each other. I think everybody's a golf fan. I agree with that. When it comes to the situation with Liv, I think that's a complex situation. That's probably something I should learn. There's three things, as I've mentioned before, that we can take from the NFL that I think applies to golf. One is you sort of relentlessly focus on the game. Getting the competition right, getting the highest level of competition is extremely important. That's something we obsessed about. I think second, finding the right partners. That's not only sponsors, but media partners who can help grow the game, distribute the game, reach as many fans as possible. That's something.
So he said about the competition, and the NFL has made some really, really significant changes to the competition. I mean, some of those motivated by health concerns, which is, not an issue in our sport, thankfully. We don't have to worry about concussions. Actually, I was talking to Ryan Fox. I did a one hole with Ryan Fox today, and I did a one hole with Michael Kim. So you guys will be seeing that very shortly. But they made changes to the kickoff rule. They've changes to how the quarterback is treated, so that it so it's more points. And I do wonder if he said, we're going to focus excessively or obsessively on the competition. I do sort of wonder if maybe, all these sort of pie in the sky dreams that we've had of like a shot clock or something that's going to actually, change the pace. If there's ever a guy to make that designation or to make that suggestion and have it taken seriously, I think it is Brian Rolapp. So let's continue with what he had to say.
We'll look at. And I think third is a constant mindset of innovation. You have to change. And I think I said it in my fan letter, we're going to honor tradition, but we're not going to be unnecessarily bound by it. And where it makes sense to change, we're going to do that. And I think that's something I take from my previous experience.
And, the NFL for all the, negativity it might get is dominates the entire conversation, owns a whole day. So yeah, I think everyone's very bullish on this hire. The proof is in the pudding. Time will tell. I imagine it'll be a sort of slow roll in. The fact that Jay Monahan is still there, it's sort of like business as usual. And I think until this guy takes over, and I think he'll sort of growingly have a voice as the months go on and as Jay Monahan gets closer to the end. But yeah, that was sort of the big story on Tuesday. And then there was a little bit that came out about Brian Rolapp that I found Chase S says, I like the shot clock, cancel the ball rollback and become the GOAT commish. That is very interesting. That ball rollback is set to go into effect in 2028 for professionals, 2030 for everybody else. And he's stepping into a sport that is trying to change the ball that it's played with. I mean, that's, as far as changes to the competition, that's pretty damn significant. And I'm sure he's going to be learning so much going forward about the ball rollback, about the role that the equipment companies play in professional golf, about how a rollback would impact his courses and the courses that they own. TPC, the tour owns a lot of courses, and all that all falls under Brian Rolapp. So it's daunting. I mean, we're all golf sickos here, but golf is a very sort of, I don't want to say niche because it's gotten so much bigger as far as its influence and culturally, and all the quarterbacks and movie stars are playing golf now, which wasn't the case. It didn't feel like when I was a kid, or if they did, they were at least like keeping it secret and they didn't want people to know. Whereas now it's like everyone's got a YouTube channel where they're playing golf. So yeah, no, it's we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But you have to learn golf is what I was trying to say. Like you have to. There's so many little intricacies and nuances. It's just like a different world. And he is, he is an outsider. And I think that was sort of highlighted by my buddy Alex Myers from Golf Digest did a little digging. Brian Rolapp doesn't have a GIN number, which, for us golf sickos, that's a little bit of a, wait a minute, why doesn't he have a GIN number? Here he is talking about it.
When this kind of leaked last week, there were some people on Twitter pointing out you don't have a golf handicap. Now,
Yeah.
your open letter today, you said you love golf, you play golf.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if you give us a little more detail on your
I'm happy to. Like my golf history, first of all, my first job in high school, I worked at the Turn at a country club in the Washington, D.C. area, Congressional Country Club. That's how I got gas money. So that's how I was actually
I like what he said. A country club in Washington, D.C., Congressional Country Club. Yep, I've heard of it.
introduced to the game on employee day, actually learning to play golf. I played in high school. I skipped quite a bit of classes in college playing, and then career and family started, and I took a long time off from the game because
That's him saying, like, I was working pretty hard at the NFL, so didn't really have time to play golf every day.
my career, my family, and got in the way in a bit. But I've taken it up in recent years again. I have 4 children. 3 of my boys love to play, and I really love being out there with them. There's very few times when you get 4 hours with your kids, and I don't know if they like it because they get lots of questions. So I play. I probably play maybe 5 to 10 rounds a year, not as much as I would like to. I will say you would have to ask the board and the search committee. No one hired me for my golf game here. That's not my job. My job is to do other things, but I'm a big fan of the sport.
We're just looking for a handicap.
Listen, if I told you, in fact, I'm not going to say it's going to be classified.
So what is your handicap? What's the handicap situation? So what do you shoot? Give us a score. I think he's going to have to get a gin. He's going to have to get a gin very shortly. He's the new, if it's him and Yasser 1-2, I guess, is the most powerful people in golf. So I think everyone feels lucky to have someone coming from the NFL, and it'll be very interesting to see, what happens with the tour, because the tour has reacted so strongly to LIV. Let's not forget how much the tour has changed in the last 5 years. Not just because of LIV, maybe in reaction to LIV, but these new signature events. I mean, less tour cards. It's down from 125 to 100, and the new PGA Tour U stuff. So, I've been on record with you guys. I am not a fan of the limited field, no cut events. I think you can still have signature events with a lot of players and still have a cut and kind of go back to that 72 hole, 100 plus players. Like, let's grind it out, do it the way. And maybe that's what he's talking about when he says, like, the competition. We got to make the competition the best it is, because we saw just how important the cut was last week at the U.S. Open, where guys were celebrating just to make it, and it was a whole tournament within a tournament. So we'll see which direction he takes the tour. There's been a lot of talk about, should the tour go more international? Should they try to own more events? Whereas the current structure is sort of these events. A lot of them are their own sort of entities that have been going since the 50s, 60s, 70s, and the whole charitable aspect. So he's got an absolutely massive job on his hands. Now, shifting gears to the Travelers Championship, this is no disrespect, obviously, to TPC River Highlands, but this is an exhale. This is an absolute exhale after the crucible that was Oakmont. I've been to this event a number of times when it's right after the U.S. Open, and guys are always a little bit weary when they show up. Kind of seeming like they've gone 10 rounds with Frazier. I don't know why I said Frazier instead of Ali there, but my dad was always a Joe Frazier guy. But this year it's especially so. I think this is the toughest U.S. Open statistically, at least since Shinnecock in 2018. And I think the guys are looking forward to play a golf course. I mean, it's hard. I was out there today. It's hard. It's like a different sport. And I had this experience when I went to Scotland to play golf for the first time back in 2013, and we got typical Scottish weather. It was raining sideways half the days. I'm playing golf in more elements than I ever expected. I'm wearing 5 different layers. And I remember getting back to California and playing my first round in LA, and it was 70 and sunny and not a breath of wind. And I'm like, this is so much easier. It doesn't even feel like the same sport. And there were the golf course, they have made it a little bit more difficult. So they've narrowed some fairways. The rough is definitely longer and healthier than it has been in recent years, or at least since I've seen the course, but it's still really soft. It was humid today. There was some rain early this week. So I do think it's going to be a big-time birdie fest. And let's not forget, this is the only golf course in PGA Tour history that has yielded a 58 from Jim Furyk. I forgot about that until I was walking in from the media lot today, and over the loudspeaker, it was like, oh, Jim Furyk, Mr. 58. So I totally forgot that happened here. But no, you're gonna need birdies to win this week. And the guys were saying that's a bit of an adjustment. You go from Oakmont, where you have a 7-iron in your hand, and par is an unbelievably good score. I mean, and I was chatting with guys today who were saying, what's so hard about that place is every single shot there's something. There's no like wide open tee shot, mash it down there and don't worry about it. And even if you had to chip out or lay up from the rough or from the bunkers, the approaches into the greens, the 120-yard shots were just so difficult, so exacting, and that's not going to be the case this week. You're going to need to shoot, probably at least 15 under to have a chance. So Jordan Spieth was talking about having to have a little bit of a different mindset to try and not be so defensive, to realize, okay, I can go at this flag. They have to remove the short side death from their mind. He did also say, interestingly, that he tries to think of U.S. Open weeks just from a purely strokes gained perspective. So if you shoot 4 over a day, he said that's basically equivalent to 2 under. You're still gaining shots on the field. So I just thought that was an interesting way of thinking about it. But the most interesting response to a question about the difficulty of the golf course this week was Scotty Scheffler. So Scotty, really, if you ask him about golf, you are going to get the best of Scotty Scheffler. He's a golf nut. He loves talking about competing. He loves talking about the game. He loves talking about different golf courses. And so they were asking him, this is the last signature event of the year, which isn't that crazy. I mean, the playoffs, I guess the FedEx Cup playoffs aren't technically considered a signature event because you have to qualify for them. It's different criteria. This is the last of the signature events. So they all come very condensed. The first one was Kapalua. Sorry. And we had Genesis, and we had all the Florida. We had Bay Hill, and we had Players, and we had Truist. And so this is the last one of the year, which is crazy how fast this year has flown by. But they were saying, this is the last one of the year. It's a really easy golf course. Is this golf course too easy? And here's what Scotty Scheffler had to say.
Golf's funny in that sense. I think people when they watch golf, it's not like other sports where you want us to look like y'all when we play golf. I think it's just kind of one of those funny things. It's like you watch the NBA and you're like, man, I wish they couldn't dunk. I wish they were scoring less. I wish their shooting percentage was lower on 3-pointers. And like if you watch tennis, you're like, man, I wish the ball was going slower.
So I get what he's saying. Like, he's basically like, why don't you guys like watching us make birdies and eagles? Well, it's because basketball is not played on courts that are all different around the country and have different designers and different histories and different grasses. Like it's a standardized field of play. But I understand what he's trying to say. He's like, I think this is, the flip side of we all want to see carnage at the U.S. Open. He's like, well, you don't want to see carnage in other sports, but let's let him keep talking.
So they look like, me out there playing tennis. It's not like that, as much as some people want us to feel like them. Professional golf is different than amateur golf. We get a lot of time to prepare, to go out and play, and the guys out here are really good at golf. Like if you stand there on the driving range and you watch a range session, that ball doesn't go offline very often.
Fact check true there. I was watching Ryan Fox hit balls today. I was unbelievably impressed. It is true. Like today there was not a breath of wind. Like not even. I don't even remember feeling wind at all at any point. So I always tell people, when I go to a PGA Tour event, what should I do? Go to the range. Go to the range and watch the standard of golf, of ball striking on a dead flat lie with no pressure and no wind, and see just how straight everyone hits it. But okay, back to Scotty.
And I think sometimes, especially in this day and age, people get way too caught up in the winning score. Being what is a proper test. I think a proper test is good shots being rewarded and bad shots being punished. I think this is one of the best golf courses for that. There's opportunity out there, and there's also punishment. Like you look at the closing stretch. 15, if you hit a good shot, you got a birdie opportunity. If you try and bail out right, you're going to be a bunker short right of the green. You're going to have a 40-yard bunker shot. It's a hard shot. 16, If you hit a good shot, you're going to have a good look at birdie. If you bail out and go long, it's a tough chip down the hill. 17. If you hit the fairway, you're going to have a chance to hit in there close to the pin. If you hit in the left rough, you probably can't get to the green. I mean, that's what we look for in golf courses. In terms of you.
He gets fired up about it. And I enjoy watching him talk about golf courses. The guys really like this week. Scotty said it's one of his favorite of the year. This was a tournament that even before they were a signature event, they were sort of an afterthought, the Travelers, for a little while, and there was a big effort. Nathan Grube, I believe, is the tournament director, or at least was. And they were one of the first tournaments that really looked after players and their families and their wives, and set up easy transportation so guys could get from the U.S. Open to the Travelers. Now with the signature event designation, the purse is doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as attracting players. But guys like this week, and as amazing as Oakmont was last week, there would be a revolt, I think, if it was a really difficult setup this week. So speaking of Oakmont, we're going to go to our sort of last thing I wanted to talk about today. And if you guys are enjoying the video, give us a like and subscribe. But JJ Spaun, there was a test at Oakmont and he passed it. He passed it with absolutely flying colors. We saw him go to New York and make his Today Show debut. I definitely don't think that JJ Spaun ever been on the Today Show before. Kind of an old school New York media tour, which when guys win majors for the first time, it's typical for them to do that. I'm thinking back to Fitzpatrick, I think, did some cool media stuff, and Wyndham Clark, but we've been on a recent run of such almost predictable major winners. Going back to last year, Scotty, Xander, Bryson, Xander, Rory, Scotty. Rory, when he won the Open or when he won the Masters, wanted to go back home and not see a single camera, whereas JJ Spawn's in a different position in his career, right? He was a journeyman for a while. I mean, admitted that he was close to giving the game up. And so, I think you got to strike while the iron is hot, and this is all new for him. So it was awesome to see him go over to New York and do the proper media tour. He came back today, a conquering hero. I believe today was his first time. Maybe, I don't know if he was there yesterday, but your life changes overnight, and it's cool being in my position because I get to see that and seeing all the kids who were screaming for JJ. That was not a thing before. Every single player who saw him came and gave him a big hug. Just the way he closed that tournament was an absolute display of guts and resilience and birdieing the last two on that place to be, I think it's really cool. The more I get away from it, the fact that there was only one guy under par and it was JJ Spaun, and it was one under par, and it was because he made a 65-footer on the last hole. He came needing a par and he made a birdie. He made a 65-footer for birdie. It's just an incredible finish, and he's immediately elevated into a new category. He's got the pairing with Scotty Scheffler this week, so it's JJ Spaun and Scotty Scheffler, which I think is definitely not happening if he doesn't win the Open, or the U.S. Open. So, his life has changed overnight, and he was actually talking about, what his experience was since Oakmont, and let's hear from JJ Spaun.
Got green and then back onto the green probably around 8:45 p.m. and then did the whole formalities of the ceremony, signing a bunch of memorabilia, obviously getting the trophy, seeing it get engraved. The USGA did a great job of kind of giving us our own little room to kind of hang out and chill.
And I'm going to take you guys behind the scenes here a little bit. I'm actually going to move this around because I can do that. I'm going to take you guys behind the scenes here a little bit. When Matt Fitzpatrick won the U.S. Open at the Country Club, Brookline, I got to hang out at that celebration and see what the USGA does. And obviously it was different at every golf course and every club, but there was a room inside the clubhouse, or maybe it was the caddy. It might have been the caddy barn. I can't remember. Where the whole Fitzpatrick clan was celebrating with all of his teammates or all of his team and his friends, and I can't even tell you what the energy was like in that room that night. Like a dream realized, and that's been one of my main takeaways from this JJ Spaun victory is, all of the majors winners prior to this were legacy guys. This was a true life changer, and that moment where it's pure joy, and also there's sort of the physical element of coming off a U.S. Open, which is the most taxing golf tournament you could possibly play, and you're just there with the trophy and it has your name on it already, and you see all the other names on it. It's one of the experiences. I get asked a lot what's the coolest experience that you've had in golf? And I've had a lot. I've been very lucky to have a lot. But celebrating in the country club, in the clubhouse after Fitzy won the U.S. Open will be hard to top for the rest of my life. So just wanted to give you guys a little personal note there. But let's get back to JJ Spaun.
Night and till whenever we wanted to leave. So we didn't leave till about 1 a.m. We didn't leave Oakmont till 1 a.m. back down to Pittsburgh where I was staying, and then it was a quick 3 hours of sleep. I got back at 1:30 and I just kind of sat in bed and but trying to maybe go through my phone, took a quick shower, tried going through my phone to respond to some people and just tried to see what was going on to help me soak it in and realize that it actually happened, because it's just been such a blur since then. And then we were off to New York City. I had a nice dinner with my family on Monday night, and we went to do all the media 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
6 a.m. I might have pushed back on. 6 a.m. I might have pushed back on. If I was the U.S. Open champion, I don't know if I'm waking up at 5 in the morning. Yeah, maybe. Let's go back to JJ.
Finish. It was literally nonstop. Didn't finish till 3:30, 4 o'clock. Hopped in a car, got driven up here. That was about 3.5 hours. So didn't walk through the front door of the hotel till 8 p.m. And then finally got some good sleep though. I slept about 8 hours, which is nice. So the last 2 nights I got the same amount as I did last.
So yeah, it's been really fun watching JJ. This is first time in a while where a guy has won a major who was not a major champion before, and who was not maybe expected to win a major championship, and I think everyone in the golf world is just really happy. Another guy who was really happy to see him win was Keegan Bradley, the Ryder Cup captain. So Ryder Cup standings as of right now, I'll give you the points. So only the top 6 qualify. Remember, it's Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele. JJ Spaun is number 3. So JJ Spaun is ahead of Bryson DeChambeau, number 4, Justin Thomas, number 5, despite an awful major season, and Colin Morikawa, number 6. So is JJ Spaun an absolute lock no matter what happens to be on the Ryder Cup? I don't think he's mathematically qualified. Scotty Scheffler has, because he has more than double the points of anybody else. Scotty and Rory are the first 2 players that have officially qualified for the Ryder Cup, which is a pretty cool designation. That's a flex. Yeah, no, my goal is not really to make the Ryder Cup this year. It's to have it locked up before the Open. I just kind of want to mathematically be in there. We'll go 7 through 13 for the U.S. Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Maverick McNeely, Harris English, Andrew Novak, Brian Harmon, then Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Cameron Young, Tom Hoagie, Keegan Bradley. Keegan's in 17th. So JJ's in 3rd. He's almost, we've talked about how the Ryder Cup has felt like this massive thing that has been on the calendar for so long, and you wondered, is it ever actually going to come? It's finally starting to feel real. We're through 3/4 of the major season, so it's really feeling like we're getting to the fat part of the golf season. So is JJ mathematically in? No, but is he in functionally? I think the answer is yes. So Keegan Bradley was asked, have you spoken to JJ? And just, I would think that maybe this would be a guy that would be on your radar. And here's what Keegan had to say.
Yeah, I've spoken with JJ. I am so thrilled for him to have won that tournament. He's played just so great this year. And I think going to a course like Bethpage Black, the people are really going to be behind a guy like JJ Spaun. His story is incredible.
I completely agree with that, by the way. A guy who is gritty, who grew up, public golf courses, played the Canadian Tour. I think Kevin Price, who's one of my favorites in golf, he works for the PGA Tour.com, works for the PGA Tour in their media department. He said you're the first, JJ Spaun was the first major winner to be a graduate of PGA Tour Americas. So that's really interesting if you think about it. PGA Tour Americas hasn't existed for that long, but that is sort of like PGA Tour Americas and Mackenzie Tour, which is the old Canadian Tour. That's like the level below the Korn Ferry Tour. So to be the first player who's played on that, and those tours existed. There was the Hooters Tour. There were some more elite mini tours before the PGA Tour kind of came in and ate everybody's lunch with PGA Tour Americas and Mackenzie, because they built this pathway to the PGA Tour, which is one of the things Jay Monahan, sort of presided over. But that's a topic that we already discussed. But JJ being the first, it is a story of grit. It is a story of overcoming and never giving up. And I do think that the New York crowd will big time identify with that. Let's go back to Keegan Bradley.
He's a hardworking guy that's just building and building and building his whole career, and then to win the U.S. Open at Oakmont, in my eyes, is the pinnacle of major golf. It's as tough as
You can see how much respect they have for that. You didn't just win the U.S. Open. You won the U.S. Open at Oakmont. Like, it deserves a designation. It is the hardest golf tournament that these guys, most of them will ever play. Okay, back to Keegan.
you can get. And I think he's a guy that people of Bethpage will really resonate with, and a guy that.
So he's saying a guy that people will resonate with, not would resonate with. He's saying will, as though he's already on the team. Keep listening.
On our team is, the heartbeat. He's now the U.S. Open champion, and that's a heavy burden to bear. But that's also a great thing to have on your team, and I'm really proud to have him on this team because it's really difficult.
I'm really proud to have him on this team. So it sounds like it's a sure deal.
To make your first team, and to go out there the way he did this year and play in these big events this well is a testament to what a player he is.
Yep. So JJ Spaun is a Ryder Cup lock. We have the question in the title: is JJ Spaun a Ryder Cup lock? Well, according to the captain himself, JJ Spaun is a Ryder Cup lock. A few other things to talk about. Rory McIlroy met with the media today. Very cordial. He was in a much better mood. Maybe he's turned it around. I don't know. Maybe everyone's just in a better mood after Oakmont. And then we're going to have the show on Monday. We're going to do the watch along on Sunday on this channel per normal, but just wanted to check in with you guys from the Travelers. I'm in a hotel room. So part of my appearance, I also didn't have the Chiron ready, the lower third, this thing right below me. So that was just a picture of my notes app. We're learning here, but I'm really enjoying the work that we're doing here and building this community. Just catching you guys up on what's going down at the Travelers. Talking about Brian Rolapp. It's been fun. It's been a good one. So we'll see you back here on Sunday for the watch along, and then we will see you on Monday for the normal Dan on Golf from the studio. Yeah, really good stuff. Appreciate it, guys.